I got to tell you, it's an extraordinary honor to be here. One of the best parts of my life is being able to celebrate other people. It turns out being celebrated yourself ain't so bad. I was kind of feeling humble about it, but now I'm like, all right, let's go. And my God, those kids lit me up. Karen, thank you. Those words were beautiful. Almost read like one of my staff wrote them. They were amazing. It was great. Michelle, for your work here at Junior Achievement, it's so important. All I could think about today listening to these kids, except for the fact that Harper is now going to be enrolling at Colby. She's got a letter of admission. She's in. It's all good. Don't worry. I'm like, I was thinking and listening to these kids, sometimes we worry about the world ahead and what it's going to be like. And then you see America's youth come up and you see their creativity, their poise, their brilliance, their desire to do something more. And how can you not want to support that, right? And that is junior achievement. When you see that and you see in the schools everywhere, to me, the most fundamental parts of any community begin with education and healthcare. Without those two things, everything else falls apart. You never have a strong workforce. You never have a strong community. You never have an economy that makes opportunities for other people without those things. Junior achievement is about making sure that education in our schools is going to be as strong as it can. They talk about believing in possibility, When you see the students who were up here earlier today, how can you not believe in possibility and want to do everything that we can ourselves to make that come to life for them? To see those statistics that we saw earlier is to see statistics that say this American dream may not last. That the American dream that we've all lived with throughout our life, that we can make the world better for the next generation, that their opportunities will be greater still than the ones that we had. That's what my parents believed. They were teachers. They made it possible for all of my family to be able to do more and more. We could take our talents wherever we wanted because they were willing to sacrifice for us. They would work hard. They would make sure that if we saw a possibility, we could make it come true. I can say, I know everybody in this room would agree with this. That American dream is not going to die here. It's not going to die with the people in this room. It's not going to die in the state of Maine. But it means that we have to continue to create those kind of opportunities for the next generation to ensure that they can do the amazing things that's in their potential to do. We felt that in so many different ways today. I fell in love with Maine when I was a child. I came here with my family. There were 9 of us in my family. And my father had a friend who had a camp up on a lake in Maine. And they gave them a week to take us on a vacation. And we had never been on a vacation like this. So the 9 of us got into a 1970 Dodge Monaco station wagon, a kind of a, you can call it any kind of yellow you want, but it wasn't a pretty yellow on this wagon. And it had fake wood paneling on the side. So you know how it goes. So with 9 people in a station wagon, you've got 3 up front, 3 in the middle, and then 3 in the back, and the 3 in the back are looking backwards. Do you remember those? You have to be of a certain age to remember those. And there is not a seatbelt anywhere to be found in this car. It's truly a death trap. And so, we left our home in Worcester, Massachusetts, and we're driving up to Maine. And when you're all stuck in together, and we lived in a small house, the 9 of us, and so we were used to sort of being, cheek by jowl and having elbows in our guts all the time. But, you're getting through a ride, and you're like a little frustrated with each other because we were always frustrated with each other. We were close in age. We drive each other nuts. So we're driving up to Maine, and my parents were educators. They weren't engineers, as you'll understand from this story. In fact, you might even say they might not even been educated by the end of this story when I tell you it. So I'm a little worried about that because they deserve better in all of this. But we didn't have a lot of room for luggage in a car with 9 people. There is no trunk because the trunk is the 3 of us sitting backwards, looking at cars and giving them the truck's middle fingers as we go by. And so, so where are we going to put the luggage? Well, we didn't have luggage, so my parents got us a group of garbage bags. And they said, pack your stuff in these garbage bags. But we did have a roof rack, and we had some ropes. So we put them on the roof rack, we tied it down, and everything was going great. We made it through Massachusetts We made it through New Hampshire. And as it turns out, there's a big bridge that you come to when you get through New Hampshire and coming in to Maine. And you see the Welcome to Maine sign. It also turns out you can feel the wind pick up sometimes over that bridge, enough that it ripped off every single bag on top of the roof, right in the middle of the bridge, with cars flying by, the clothes all over the bridge. It was my oldest brother and my father got out, and they were running, grabbing clothes, shoes, everything off. A lot of the stuff was gone forever. Not an auspicious beginning about loving Maine. But being at that camp was extraordinary. You know, the kind of freedom that you have in Maine, the connection that you have to nature, to beauty, to being with each other as a family. It was one of these extraordinary moments that I will never forget. You know, we didn't shower for a week, but we did jump in the, we jumped in the lake. We were a little ripe at the end of it, but it didn't matter, because for us, it was this kind of taste of freedom in this sense of what another kind of possibility. It wasn't again until I finished high school, and right when I finished high school, about 2 days later, I moved up to Maine. I moved to Ogunquit, Maine, and every summer in college, I came back to Maine, and I worked in restaurants. I'd have 3 jobs during the summer. I'd do everything I could to pay for college, and I loved it. I loved Maine. I love the quirkiness of it. I love the people who are here. I love the beauty of this community, and it got into my soul. I said, someday I will be back in Maine. And boy, when the Colby came knocking, I was like, wow. I was living in Chicago at the time with my family. We said the chance to live in Maine, to be part of this community, was something that there was no way that I could pass up. And to be part of the Colby community, this extraordinary college with such a rich history, with such potential, with such possibility, that too was just too good to give up. It was the right choice for us, but more so than we ever could have imagined at that time, to be in this amazing state, a state where people look out for one another. Whenever you live in a community where you have that, you never want to give it up again. For so many communities where you can feel soulless, where you don't feel like the people next to you know you, where people are not looking out for each other, they're not looking out for the best interest of others, they're not about the community. I never want to be in one of those places again, because when you're in Maine and you feel that, it's something that gets into your soul. It is something that's so important, and it's about how do you keep making that happen. And at Colby, we have the privilege of being able to make that happen time and again, and I love that. But it's because it's in the history of our place. It's in the history of Waterville, Maine. You know, in 1929, when Colby could no longer stay on the campus that it was in, it was too small. The buildings were breaking down. This is a college that was founded in 1813, and they were ready to move away from Waterville. Instead, the people of Waterville got together and said, we're going to raise money to buy the land for you to stay here in the city. Colby was struggling. Waterville was going well at that time. And they did exactly that. They raised $107,000, literally passing around the hat. Oh my God, if we had this crowd there tonight, we would have had even more land. And what they did, you know, they bought this land on top of a hill and they deeded it to Colby. Colby moved its entire campus up there over a 30-year period. No money at all for this college, but a lot of guts, a lot of determination, a lot of sense of possibility. And they created a campus that is one of the envious campuses of the country. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And it gave the opportunity for Colby to grow and thrive over the next decades. At the same time, we saw what happened to Waterville is what happened to so many different cities and towns in Maine and across this country, where the economic base of the city, the mills, both the textile mills and the paper mills, pulled out. You know, that's a moment, right, when you start to see that. You know, when Colby needed a hand, Waterville lent that hand. And we wanted to make sure that when Waterville needed that hand, that Colby was there for Waterville. That's what you do in Maine, right? We've got the mayor of Waterville here tonight, Mike Morris. This is a community where we care about each other, we watch out for each other all the time. And now you heard $250 million of new reinvestment in downtown, 40 new businesses that opened in our 4-block downtown, 2 new art centers, new hotels. It's just amazing to see how things have changed. If you haven't been up to Waterville lately, come on up. It's an amazing place to be. But that's what it means to be in Maine for me. So when I look at the future of all of this, I see Maine as a place where community matters, where people really do extend a hand to one another. I have to tell you this because I have some of my members of my board of trustees here tonight, including my chair, Jane Powers, and there were many boards who would have looked at the idea that we should be doing all of this for Waterville as completely nuts. Why would a college do this? We've got enough to do on our own campus. But they too believed in the power of community, and they believed in the idea that a private college could be for public good. And the more that we have colleges that believe that themselves across Maine, but across this country, the kind of things that we're dealing with in higher education right now, including the distrust that many feel in our institutions, it will go away. We need to be much more connected. We might need to be doing more good every single day for our communities. And I can tell you at Colby, that is so high on our priority list, we are never going to let that go. I just have to say a special shout out to one of the trustees who's here tonight, who was one of the first people I met in Maine, and who's a Hall of Famer himself, Joe Bolis, who's sitting here. His company just celebrated 50 years in Maine. And as a Hall of Famer, he told me Roger Goodell would be here tonight, would be like giving me a yellow jacket. I'm like, Joe, where the hell is he? I know it's coming. But I have to say, following in your footsteps is an incredible honor for me as well in all of this. This, to me, to be with you tonight, to have what we are doing represented, it's not about me. It is not about me. This is about the work that this college is doing every single day to make sure that this state is as strong as it can possibly be, that the young people that we saw tonight and all the other young people across this state have options in their life. They have possibilities. They can see them. That the American dream is alive and well in this state. If we all focus on that, if we do our little bit, whatever it might be, if it's in our company, it's in our institutions, it's in our personal life, we find a way to just make it a little bit better for the next generation, there will be no statistics like we saw earlier. The future will be as bright as it can possibly be. Maine needs that. This country needs that. And if we can do it, we should all gather together and make sure that our energy, our passion for that is poured into it to ensure that Maine is going to be the state that is going to be the envy of this country, but this country will continue to be the envy of the world. Thank you very much.